So Hubert Davis is out as head coach of North Carolina. And with this being North Carolina with the high expectations, the coaching candidates mentioned are the top coaches in the game like Tommy Lloyd, Dusty May, Nate Oates, and so forth and so on, and also like Billy Donovan. So this is North Carolina, a program that expects to be contending for national championships, a rich history, and I guess their fans, they deserve what the names I mentioned above. But then you have Stephen A. Smith, who supposedly has been established as a top voice in sports talk. And his candidate, if he were running things at UNC, would be Kenny the Jet Smith. Never mind the names I mentioned and what they've accomplished. The number one sports voice thinks that Kenny Smith at North Carolina would be special. Now, I don't know what that means. Special like John Wooden with UCLA. I don't know. This is just so ridiculous to mention and bring up Kenny Smith to lead North Carolina. And I'll get more into this later on in the video. But imagine if this statement was said where First Take has a crowd, an event, or something like that. The crowd would be going crazy, as this is the stupidity in sports now. They'd be going, yeah, Kenny Smith, UNC, yeah, Kenny Smith, Tar Heels, yeah. Never mind that he doesn't have any coaching experience. Now, of course, Kenny, he's a great talker, would probably be great at fundraising, ribbon cutting, whatever. But to be a college coach, does Stephen A. Smith really know what goes into running a college program? Of course, you have your X's and O's, in-game adjustments, game management. But what about putting together a staff, recruiting strategy, how to prepare for games? And also, what about scheduling practice? That organizational aspect that you really need to run a program. But also, what about plans for player development? And I know that there are numerous more items to go along with running a program, but this is just not any other program. This college basketball program is one in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. What in the world makes Stephen A. Smith think that Kenny Smith can do all this? Someone who's been a basketball analyst when he retired from the NBA and has no coaching experience. He has no idea how to run a program with extremely high expectations. But he's on TV. Stephen A. Smith, you work with him, so guess what? He'll be automatically great. You know, Stephen A., there's a world outside of Bristol, Connecticut. Stephen A. Smith thought that Ryan Clark, his colleague at ESPN, should have gotten an interview with the Steelers for their head coaching job. I'm not going to get into that, but I'll just say I don't think Stephen A. truly realized the complexities of being an NFL coach. Stephen A. Smith doesn't realize the complexities of running a college basketball program. I mean, also I should mention, what about his colleague Jeff Saturday when he went to the Colts, when he became the head coach of the Colts during midseason? How did that go? Not too well. You know, if I wake up one day and Stephen A. Smith becomes president and he's talked about possibly running, whatever. But if he becomes president, what would his cabinet be like? I mean, would Mike Greenberg be the Secretary of Defense? I don't know. But it seems like his cabinet would be full of ESPN colleagues. Now, I understand there may be examples like Penny Hardaway at Memphis, J.J. Redick with the Lakers, or going back to Larry Durker coming out of the broadcast booth to manage the Houston Astros in the late 90s. But those are all different, much different situations. I remember when Rick Majerus, he left Utah, took some time away from coaching in the early 2000s, then went back into coaching like 3 or 4 years later with St. Louis. And then when Majerus began his recruiting with St. Louis, he was basically wondering, what is going on? What happened? Because the landscape changed so much because of the rapid rise of AAU basketball. Now, this is Rick Majerus, a great coach. I understand Kenny Smith was a great North Carolina player, but you really think Kenny Smith can bring championships to Chapel Hill, going up against the likes of Dan Hurley, Tom Izzo, John Calipari, whoever you want to mention, whatever, you get the point. So, last thing I want to mention, I thought at first that this was kind of a joke, but Stephen A. Smith, top voice in sports, he was serious because he said one of the phrases I can't stand at all. In regards to Kenny Smith should be the head coach at North Carolina, he said, remember, you heard it here first, I can't stand that phrase in the stupid prediction business of sports. But aside from Stephen A., it amazes me when someone is talking on TV or someone was a great player, they automatically think that that person would be a great hire, be a great coach. And their fans would think this way too. But they really truly don't understand how difficult, how complex, how organized one has to be to take over a program. It takes so much to run a college basketball program.